The townsfolk whispered long before the wagon even reached the high ridge, whispers sharp as needles, full of mockery and cruelty, the kind that bruised a girl long before the world ever laid a hand on her. Mara had grown up with those whispers. The ugly one, they called her. Though her features were soft, her eyes kind and her spirit gentle, but in a family obsessed with beauty and attention, her quietness was mistaken for plainness, her modesty for flaw, her calm for weakness. So when the wealthy mountain man, Elias Thorne, sent word to town that he sought a bride, someone willing to live a simple but honest life in the high ranges, her sisters had laughed before their mother even finished reading the letter. "Send Mara," one sneered. "He'll think it's a joke." And so they dressed her in old, faded garments, handed her a fraying shawl, and pushed her into the wagon as though offering her up for the town's amusement. But Mara, though wounded, kept her chin lifted. She had survived a lifetime of being treated as nothing. The mountains could not be harsher than her home, and so she rode to meet a stranger, believing she would be returned with ridicule, believing she would face yet another disappointment. The mountains rose like a cathedral around her as the wagon climbed, and the air grew crisper, clearer, freer. When she reached the wooden gate of the Thorne homestead, the horse snorted and the world fell quiet, almost reverent. Elias was there, broad-shouldered, sun-browned, bare-chested from the day's labor, standing like he had been carved from the wild cliffs behind him. But it was not his strength that startled her. It was his eyes. They were warm, steady, curious, not judging her, not mocking her, not even skimming past her. They saw her, really saw her. When Mara climbed down, shy and uncertain, her voice barely above a whisper as she introduced herself, Elias felt something unexpected tug inside his chest. He had expected a desperate bride, or maybe a giggling flirt, like the town girls who often tried to catch his attention. But this woman, quiet, humble, eyes carrying storms, held herself as though she had spent her whole life trying not to burden the world. She was, in a word he rarely used, captivating. He noticed the way her hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the weight of everything she carried. He noticed how she avoided his gaze out of habit, not because she lacked confidence, but because her confidence had been crushed before it ever had a chance to grow. When he offered his hand to help her down from the wagon, she hesitated like she expected laughter or rejection. Instead, he simply held her hand gently, grounding her. "You must be Mara," he said, voice deep but kind. "I'm glad you came." No one had ever said that to her before. Not once. The words struck her harder than any insult ever had. Inside his cabin, he brewed tea while she sat timidly on the edge of a chair, unsure if she was allowed to relax. He asked about her journey, her life, her dreams. She gave short, careful answers, afraid of saying too much. Elias didn't push. He simply listened, nodding, offering small kindnesses that felt enormous to a girl who had never been offered any. Later, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, he stepped outside with her to show her the fields, the corral, the path leading to the lake. She followed silently, absorbing the piece of the world he had built with his own hands. "Your family must miss you already," he said as they walked. Mara stiffened. "I'm not sure they'll notice I'm gone," she murmured. He turned to her, brows drawing together with concern. "Then they're fools," he said simply. She blinked fast. No one had defended her before. The wind shifted, lifting strands of her dark hair, and Elias realized something. He did not expect at all she wasn't the woman the town mocked. She wasn't plain or odd or lesser. She was quietly beautiful. A beauty that asked for nothing, demanded nothing, but bloomed when someone finally looked with gentleness. As she rode the wagon back toward the guest cabin he had prepared, Mara allowed herself to breathe for what felt like the first time. She didn't know if he would want her. She didn't know if she belonged in a world as wild and strong as his. But when she stole a final glance at him, standing tall, hand on the wagon rail, watching her with a gaze that held no mockery, she felt something, tiny but powerful, flicker inside. Her hope, and it terrified her more than anything else ever had. The next morning dawned in a wash of gold over the mountains, and Mara awoke to the gentle sound of birds instead of the sharp-tongued voices she grew up with. She expected to feel fear again, fear of disappointing Elias, fear of being laughed at, fear of being unworthy of a life that already felt too peaceful for someone like her. Instead, she found herself listening to the wooden cabin creak softly, the fire crackling in the hearth, the scent of pine drifting through the open window. For the first time, she felt the possibility of belonging somewhere. Elias arrived early, carrying baskets of berries and fresh bread. Mara startled, smoothing her dress instinctively, embarrassed by her worn clothes. But he only offered a warm smile. "You should eat," he said. "You look like no one fed you enough back home." She flushed, not with shame this time, but with the sting of being gently cared for. They ate together on the small porch, watching sunlight spill across the valley. Elias asked more questions, not out of curiosity, but out of a desire to understand her. What she liked, what she feared, what she hoped for. Mara answered slowly, careful not to reveal too much of the hurt she had known. But he noticed anyway. He noticed everything. After breakfast, he showed her the ranch work, feeding the horses, mending the fence, harvesting small patches of herbs she could tend to if she wished. He never forced her to do anything, never asked her to prove her worth. He simply invited her into his world, and she found herself wanting to accept. In the afternoon, as they walked by the river, she slipped on a smooth stone and caught herself awkwardly. Her cheeks burned, remembering how her sisters always laughed when she stumbled. But Elias only steadied her, his hands warm and reassuring. "You're safe," he said. Two simple words, yet they hit her so deeply she had to look away. Later, when clouds gathered and wind swept through the valley, they hurried back to the main cabin. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then heavier, drumming against the wooden roof. Mara sat beside the fire, watching the flames dance, while Elias chopped wood outside to keep them warm through the storm. When he returned, shirt soaked, hair dripping, muscles trembling from the cold, she could not stop looking at him. Not because of his strength or what others admired, but because he had worked for her comfort without being asked. No one had ever done that. He knelt beside the fire, warming his hands, and noticed her gaze. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. Mara swallowed. "I'm thinking, I don't understand why you're being so kind to me." Elias turned to her, eyes steady, voice lower than before. "Because kindness is what you deserve. Because you were sent here as a joke, and that alone tells me your family doesn't see your worth." She stared at him, stunned. He continued, leaning closer. "But I see it." A storm inside her, years of being called ugly, useless, unwanted, cracked like lightning. Her throat tightened, eyes filling against her will. "Elias, I don't know how to be what you need," she whispered. He reached out slowly, allowing her time to pull away. She didn't. "I don't want someone painted up by town standards," he said. "I don't want someone pretending to be perfect." His thumb brushed her knuckles. "I want someone real, someone gentle, someone who listens, someone who feels deeply." He held her gaze deliberately, firmly. "I want you, Mara, exactly as you are." The fire crackled loud enough to fill the silence between them. She felt warmth bloom inside her chest, painful, bright, terrifying, and beautiful at once. In that moment, she understood that he meant it. He wasn't pitying her. He wasn't settling for her. He wanted her, not the version her family mocked, but the woman she truly was. The storm outside slowly softened, rain turning to mist. Elias stood, offering her his hand, not demanding, not assuming, simply inviting. "Walk with me?" She nodded. They stepped onto the wet porch, the world washed clean by the storm. The sky opened with streaks of pink and gold, casting a glow over the valley. Mara breathed in deeply, the air crisp and cool, feeling something shift inside her, something like rebirth. "Your family may have sent you here as a joke," Elias said quietly beside her. "But they gave me the greatest gift without realizing it." She blinked in surprise. "A gift?" He turned fully toward, her expression sincere. "You?" Her breath caught, and for the first time in her life, she believed she might actually be worth loving. And as the light faded and the mountains embraced the evening sky, Mara felt it deep in her bones. She was finally home. With him, with herself. with the life she had never dared dream could be hers.